Hello, it's Angie, Sonia, and Sandra, Horror Flick Chicks here. Horror Flick Chicks podcast, talking about only murders in the building. We're up to season 3, episode 6, Ghost Light. So, just a kind of a recap from what's been happening. And in the last episode, we have Loretta being like super like up there on the suspect list, just kind of looking like the main suspect between her writing on her mentioning a fucking pig and realizing that that might be her handwriting on the mirror, and Oliver finding the photo album. And then we have all sorts of love stories happening. So Mabel is hanging out with Tolbert after their stakeout, and now we see Joy and Charlie having issues because he's decided that he wanted to tell her that he didn't mainly think of her as his fiance. He just kind of like went into some sort of trance, and so they're kind of not happening right now. And so now we're seeing them all like still sort of trying to come together, but doing their separate things.
Mm-hmm.
So we see Howard, who is, the main assistant, who's the director's assistant, Jonathan's
I can hear you.
significant other.
Sandra, I can hear you.
And oh yeah, Sandra,
Why?
I don't know.
Type it.
Okay,
Okay,
well,
this is a good time to know sign language. We need to get on.
oh, yes, I know. See, this is
We were
why our
talking about that before.
ASL coming soon.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sandra just said she loves Howard. So yeah, so Howard is got these superstitions. He's been kind of like mentioning how he's
Hello?
been going into now we can hear you. There you go.
Technical difficulties, folks.
Yeah,
We're
sorry.
back. I'm back.
So now we see Howard sort of still doing, he's like kind of mentioning his nightly like superstition, which is he's brooming the stage, and he's remembering that, when he did it, he basically is saying that he saw a ghost, that there's a ghost that has been in the theater named Gideon Gooseberry, and Gideon has been like, messing up like people's plays in that theater for years on
Yeah,
end.
he died. He got killed in the theater,
Yeah.
and the story is that he haunts the theater,
Yeah, so
and there's a certain ritual that you have to do to like get him out, so he doesn't come out during
Yeah.
shows, and so he comes to. I don't remember if he came to all three of them, or it was just Oliver, or just Mabel. I think it was all three of them. That he said, that he killed Ben.
yeah,
Yeah.
so Howard's thing is I killed Ben after he, decides to sort of mention to them that this ghost is there, and the ghost is there because of him. So
Right.
he's feeling a little guilty, and they're like, okay, tell us the story.
Yeah.
And they're like, listen, there's no ghost there. Are you telling it? Like, you literally just said you killed him. Why did you say that? So it turns out that, so Mabel and Tolbert are had hooked up the night before, and we
Yeah.
see Charlie and Oliver in Mabel's space to and see him, and they're like, hey, it's a naked guy in a towel. And so they're just kind of like, okay, so like tell us the story, what's going on. So then it turns out that they realized that Gideon and the doctor that Jonathan had been speaking to the night before, they kind of sounded, they had like a lot of familiar like characteristics. So they're like, maybe this guy is like the doctor. Imagine that. So now they're kind of like trying to figure out this sort of like, mystery. as it turns out, Oliver and Charlie and Mabel go to the theater. Mabel finds a list of attendance, the actor's attendance sheet. So Mabel's like, "Oh, this is perfect. We can like compare the handwriting,
the handwriting to the mirror, yeah,
to the mirror." And Oliver's like, "Hey, wait, let me try and let me look at this. It's my property." And so like, basically,
Yeah, he's trying
like,
to. Yeah,
he's trying to like save his
Yeah.
girlfriend.
Yeah.
he's trying to save his boo thing.
He's trying to save his boo thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least like maybe he's just trying to find out for himself to prove it.
He's trying to investigate for
first.
himself.
Yeah.
Because he has more invested in her now. She's not just an actress in this play.
Right. Like he's clearly he got the feelings,
Because at first he was acting like he didn't want to compare the signatures to the mirror. But then you did see him at a certain point go in there and he was kind of looking and at both. So
so he takes it, he compares the signatures, and then he's like, you know what, I guess it looked kind of similar. He's like, how many ways can you make an F? And then he's like kind of clearing off the lipstick. At that point, Charlie and Mabel see him doing this. They're like, what are you doing? You're messing up evidence. He's like, no, I'm not. They already got the guy. So he's like, he just wants to like kill this.
He's trying to get it. Oh, yeah.
He's trying to kill this thing so that he can move on with the show, so that his love interest is not found guilty of this thing.
Yeah.
And so like then they sort of go into these like, disputes of what's going on. Charlie finds himself locked in one of the prop closet, and he's there. He's in there, by the way,
McKinley.
With President McKinley, which is a goldfish.
Yeah.
And Joy's old goldfish. And he's kind of like,
that whole thing with him in the closet, I was dying.
Hilarious. And he's like starting to talk to him, he's talking to the fish, but he's talking to himself. And he ends up, I was like, why would you put the fish in the tank? Don't you know?
He's trying to find a place to put, he had the fish was in a bag, and they were trying to find a place to put the fish, but there was nothing in there except a toilet. So he took the lid off the tank and put them in there. He said,
I would have just put the whole bag in the.
Yeah, I wouldn't have taken them out.
Tank.
But then in the midst of him talking to the fish and kind of talking about things, he says, you don't mind if I use the bath, I have to go. And he pees, and he's peeing while he's talking.
And then he flushes
unconsciously, he flushes, and he's like,
he said, Mr. President.
That was hilarious.
Oh, I was watching it on the train, and I was trying to like not laugh out loud because the train was full. It was so funny.
I know. That scene was so funny.
I like that he at the end, he flushed him and whatever, but then he saw him, the fish was in the actual bowl. Yeah. And he found him, he took a cup and he scooped him up and he said, I saved you from an assassination attempt.
For a second time, President
for a second time. I mean, bizarre, but so funny. And so then we see like, so then the room fills up with smoke. Like it turns out that
he turns on the fog machine and it starts to fill up with smoke, and he tries to record like he's
trying to record that last, like basically,
if you're watching this
is what happened to me. That recording was so hilarious.
It's too much.
I mean, just so funny.
But I like, so it's weird because this season especially, all three main characters are kind of going off on their own.
Yeah.
Doing their own investigations. Each of them have kind of their own piece.
Right.
Of everything.
They have their own little leads that they're trying to.
Yeah. And I feel like, it's funny, not funny, I guess, but to see Charles and Oliver, I feel like they're kind of a little jealous of Mabel and Tolbert.
Yeah, they are.
And then
For
like, you
sure.
bringing him into the mix now? Like, I
It's
thought it was
just
us.
so funny. It's like it's
Yeah.
just like as if you were to bring somebody else
That's
into
true.
the podcast.
That's
I
true.
would be like, what the fuck? I'm just saying, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, so now we see Charlie and Oliver kind of going at it. They're both kind of blaming each other for certain
Yeah.
things. Now everybody's blaming everybody for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like really, you know, they're obviously still really upset with Mabel. Mabel is kind of like telling them, oh, you know what? Cinda Channing was right. Like I should just so then they
Yeah,
find
and then
out
they're
that-
like, what? And say, yeah, I spoke to Cinda and she wanted me to work with her. But I said no, because I have my group. But she's like, maybe it's not gonna work out. Or
They're
whatever.
starting to get torn apart.
There's not a tension.
they're starting to unravel, basically.
Yeah. Big time.
So I don't know. Let's so the end of this episode basically was all of them sort of fighting and sort of trying to figure out like who
Well, let's talk about this guy, the old man that's staying in the theater with
right.
that Oliver found. Oliver was in the theater and he found, and somebody came up behind him and covered his mouth, you know.
Right.
And then we see, and it was this older man, and he was apparently a director, theater director, directed plays and stuff that Oliver knows, and he's been living in the theater, because it's a free place to stay, and I guess his shows didn't do so well, and he's just kind of there. But he's
There's
he's
a couple of really funny things. So like at one point he's like, you know, the I don't know the name of the older director living in the theater, but he was saying to Oliver, oh, you know that Loretta is violent.
Yeah, he was talking about, he was saying like,
so Oliver said it in passing, and it was
Oliver was talking about, you know, I broke the first rule of theater, and he said, oh, you're falling in love with a cast member, and he was like, yeah, and he said,
no, actually the first rule was don't feed Hugh Jackman after
midnight. Yeah, right.
Which is so funny. He's like, you fed Hugh Jackman after midnight. He's like, no, the other one.
Yeah, right. And you know, falling in love with a cast member, and he was like, yeah. It's like, oh, is it the one with the braids? And he said, yeah. And then the guy was saying how that she's violent, and he was like, what do you mean? Because we found out last week that you know, Charles found out that was it Charles? Yeah, Charles found out that Loretta and Ben had a fight. Didn't Joy tell him?
Or yes, Ben and Loretta were having a fight.
Yeah,
and then
it kind of showed.
Charles found them, and he saw Ben kind of like manhandling her or whatever, and he ended up punching him that night.
Right. But Albert didn't know this.
Right.
So the old man in the theater told him, and he's like, wow, you know.
Oh, his name is Jerry.
Jerry.
I was just looking at
So he told him, and he's finding this out for the first time, and he's like, and then Jerry pulls out this like little like a puppet theater thing, and he made like little stick figures of the characters in the play. He said, I've been busy. Let me play this out for you. And he starts doing, he has Ben and Loretta and the fight and the thing, and then Charles coming in to kind of punch him and save it. So, you know, Oliver's like, oh wow. So later on when we get to the whole when Charles is in the theater dressing room, and he's wiping the lipstick wording off the mirror.
Oliver's
on the mirror, and he's wiping it off, and Charles and Mabel come in, and they're like, what are you doing? That's evidence. It's like, oh, you're keeping things from me. You were in the theater and all this and this. So that's when it starts to get like, real tense.
They're finding out little things and that they didn't know, and now they're
each other and they're not friends, kind of thing. And so it's really getting to
it's getting heated.
Bad place for them. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if Mabel's going to go with Cinda. They may do that. They may do that next week. Like, not necessarily her with Cinda like actually working together, but they may
Right.
they may show Cinda next week.
May
But she's definitely
maybe
gonna
have
be
a
still
meeting or
be
something.
yeah, she's definitely still gonna be working with Tolbert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's
Yeah.
the question, ladies, because this episode felt a little bit to me like to me, it was a little bit of a filler episode, but nevertheless, like,
Right.
who do you feel at this point, knowing what you've known through the episodes, who's on your suspect list?
Well, I mean, I still have Loretta on there.
Yeah.
Based on mostly based on who was in this last episode. Loretta wasn't in this past episode, but she's still high on my list. I would say Tolbert is still on my list too. I think he's way too involved in all this. Like, he's still
Right.
I know he still wanted to write a book or do a documentary or a movie or something about it. So that's his motive. I think that's what he would say, but I feel like I don't know. He's trying to stay close to everything
To
so
maybe throw them off.
people don't suspect him. Right. So I think
Right.
definitely Tober might be. And then I have a new suspect on my list, a possible suspect. I'm not sure. But KT. So KT is the girl that she's like she's not an assistant. She's
the stage manager.
Like the stage manager. Yeah.
Right. So she was the one in there and she was like, it was because she was in there, she was like editing scripts or something. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I don't know what, but I know
she
was highlighting stuff, but then she was putting something in the shredder and I saw Oliver like kind of looking.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
me
what is
too.
she doing?
Mm-hmm.
So that kind
It
of
was a little suspicious. She was doing something.
She was totally suspicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's on my list now.
Yeah, so I put her on mine because I thought that, and then she started to and she knows the theater, right? She knows what's going on, and she knows about Gideon, the
and she knows
ghost
about the
thing,
ghosts.
you
She
know,
knows about the
whatever,
ghosts. Yeah.
superstitions and all that stuff surrounding the theater. So, you know, she's on my list now.
Yeah.
Well, I like you, I still have Loretta on my list. In the beginning, I still wasn't having like Tobert on my list because last week I know you guys mentioned it, but I didn't really see it. I see it more now, even though not too much, but I see it more now because the gang has basically separated right now. So it's like, oh, maybe that's what he was trying to do. Get them apart, get Mabel apart from them. You know?
This is his chance to kind of
like we were saying, like,
like
kind of throw the whole investigation off and maybe persuade her into like kind of being on his side or looking at the suspects that he has and things like that. Because we should mention that because last week they followed Jonathan to where he works because he said that he was suspect, even though he says it wasn't true. He was just trying to get her on a date, but they were still following it because they saw Jonathan at the theater and they confronted him.
Yeah, that's right.
But he basically said, yeah, I was meeting with Ben's doctor because I've been so anxious.
Because now he's the star of the
now he's the star,
right?
because he's the understudy, right?
He's the star.
Right. So he's like, I've been so anxious since I've been the star of the play. And so he's been giving me basically medication to like calm his nerves, calm down. And it was like a mix of a bunch of stuff. It's the same thing that he used to give to Ben. And so then they realized, oh, so you didn't want to be the star, because that was the whole thing, right?
Yeah,
like he had the perfect motive because he wanted to be the star, so he killed off the star, so now he's the star. But he said he didn't want to because he doesn't like the whole he didn't like all the pressure of it.
Yeah. And he didn't have the heart to tell Howard, because Howard would want that, Howard.
Yeah. That's like Howard's always wanted that, right? So, and I also have now the stage manager on my list too.
There's just too many people to blame.
She was helping Howard because she said because he was mentioning about the sweeping ritual, and she's like, no, that's not how you get rid of it. this is how you do it. And she basically gave him the script that what was his name? Gideon was reading the night that he was killed in the theater. Read it, and you read it like you're, in the play reading it, and it'll like cast the spirit away, I guess. There's a light in the theater that kind of lights up bright, supposedly when he's around. She could be rigging that. She could have been rigging that. Like you said, she knows the theater. She's trying to like mess with people's heads.
Yeah.
And stuff. And that little suspicious thing she did in the room with the paper and the shredder and stuff, I caught that.
That's true. She could be rigging stuff because when the three of them first went into the theater, the sandbags fell from the
two of them almost hit Charles.
Right, and they almost hit Charles. But then when Oliver was talking to Jerry said that he did it because once he found out that Howard was kind of afraid of the ghost Gideon, he thought that he can do some spooky ghost things,
right,
and it would scare people away from the theater so people won't catch him living there and stuff. So he was doing that. Right. But KT knew that. I think KT knew that this guy is there. Did I catch that, or maybe I didn't?
I don't think anyone knows he's there.
Okay. All right. So
that's so I would say for the same reasons, KT is now on my list. I feel like my list just keeps growing, but I still have the same Tolbert, Loretta. Here's the thing. I was kind of wondering, like I've said before, there might be a possibility that there's two killers.
Right.
So I'm starting, hear me out, Loretta and Oliver. Hear me out.
Are the killers?
I feel like, why is he covering this up? Besides,
he loves her.
I know, but
he doesn't want to be the ones, the kind of killer. So
isn't it? But that's really deep.
It's not a bad thing. I mean, in the beginning of when we started reviewing this show, I said that I thought Charles might be.
It was Charles, yeah.
So yeah, it's not far-fetched. It's just that
I'm throwing Oliver and
Loretta. It's just that they're the main characters. So would they really make them? Would this show really make one of them the killer? But
they definitely may have some suspicious tendencies on certain things. But I don't think the killer is either Charles, Oliver, or Mabel.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I don't think so at all.
So I have.
But look, that's good. I would keep them on.
I also have a suspicion that it's more than just one person. But these episodes have been so great. They keep like throwing us off, and I can't wait for next week.
Yeah.
So
we'll have more people on the list probably.
Probably. Well, that's good. This has been very fun as always. Horror Flick Chicks here, Angie, Sonia, Sandra. You can catch us on YouTube, subscribe, like, share, do all the things. Podcast, you can hear us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you're listening to. Pandora. Thank you. So yeah. Peace, love, and horror.
Bye.
Bye.
That's the end.